Good day, everyone. How are you doing today? I hope you're all doing well, as I am. It is Saturday, and it's another craft with me today. So I actually am filming this on Saturday because it's been one of those weeks where it's just nothing has gotten done like I usually do, and so I am back to filming this week on a Saturday. And it's not too late in the morning. It's about 10 o'clock in the morning here where I am filming, and I decided that I would work on my sock that I need to get done. I have not touched the sock in probably over a week now, and so, well, no, it's been about a week, and so I decided that I needed to work on this because I want to get it done. So this is the sock that I'm doing for my friend. This is the second of the two socks. This is a Knit Picks I believe it's a Hawthorn in the color Elliot. I know the color is Elliot, but I don't know if it's a Hawthorn or if it is it's one of their sock yarns. And so this is number 2. This morning, whenever I first got up, I went ahead and picked up the stitches around the heel, and now I am doing the gusset decreases. And this is the remaining ball of yarn. I should have just enough left to complete this sock if my measurements and weights are correct whenever I went ahead and figured it out. So like I was saying before, first off, I hope you all have your beverages or snacks of choice. I have my coffee because it is still 10 o'clock in the morning. And But whatever time you're watching this, please feel free to enjoy and indulge with me. And I'm totally jealous if you have whiskey. Okay, so I was saying that this week has just been kind of one of those crazy weeks that my crafting has not been going the way it normally does. I have been knitting a decent amount every day. Last night I was actually really struggling to get through any crafting at all. I don't know, it was just my frame of mind, and so I really, and whenever I did knit a little bit last night and was messing up a lot, and that means that I should not be doing any crafting. But I did get a little bit done. I was working on my new scarf that I started this week that I will show you the progress on in my weekly update on Wednesday. But I have not cross-stitched since Tuesday, when I last touched my By the Bay. So I'm really hoping that after I get this filmed today and get some decent progress on my sock, that I will switch back to some stitching and see some decent progress on that. I'm not going to be working on By the Bay. I did put Henry on my stand, so this morning. So I'm hoping that I will be motivated to work on him and try to get a decent amount of this page done that I'm currently working on. I do have, next weekend is a long weekend for me. I have a 4-day weekend for the holiday. It's President's Day weekend is coming up, President's Day. And so my school always has a 4-day weekend. And so I'm looking forward to that and getting a lot of crafting in and lots of other exciting just things to do around the house that I don't typically get to do because I don't really have the time. And so what I thought I'd talk about today is as a fairly new knitter, I've been knitting for a year now. Caroline and I started this journey of the Teaching Gerald to Knit videos in February of 2018. So it's been just a year now. And so a lot of people that have taken this journey with me and that are just starting the journey as well and learning how to knit reach out to me and ask me questions like, how do you find time to do both hobbies? How do you find time to cross stitch so you don't forget about your cross stitching or don't lose your motivation to cross stitch? Because learning to knit takes so much time and practice. And how do you balance being multi-craftual, basically, is the question. And I really think my answers what I'm going to talk about can really fall into not just crafting, but any aspect of life that, you struggle to find balance. Just making sure I did the right decrease there. So real quick, I wanted to say on the last sock that I did, the first sock, I struggled with remembering which side was which with the decreases since I'm not doing it on DPNs, I'm doing it on my circular. So I decided to go ahead and I have my lava rock stitch marker that my brother gave me for Christmas as my start of row, because it coincides with the beginning of the row the whole way down through the sock. And then I have a gold stitch with me, or yeah, gold stitch with me, gold marker to mark where the decrease is on this side, which would be my knit two together. And then I have a blue marker on this side, which is my slip slip knit. That way I can just remember, it helps me, and I just dropped 2 stitches because I wasn't paying attention. Having those extra markers on the sock really helped me just to remember, and I can knit much faster without really having to have a lot of thought involved. So, getting back to the discussion of balance in life, especially with crafting, how it worked with me when I was first learning to knit a year ago was that, my cross stitch really took a back seat for a while, and often does throughout the year as I'm feeling motivated to knit. So because I was highly motivated to learn how to knit and to get it perfect right away, I didn't stitch as much. And there would be days that I didn't stitch at all because I was extremely into the knitting. And just like this week, that still happens. And I think you really just need to prioritize, and that's what I do, is prioritize what is calling to you, what you're feeling like doing, and know that you're not going to have time for everything every day. And know that that's all right. And that the other hobbies and the other activities will still be there when you're ready for them. At the beginning of the year, this year, I think I went almost 10 days without stitching. I was doing a lot of knitting, but I wasn't doing much stitching at all. And that's just because, just like anything, moods and excitements over things wax and wane. And so for me, it was learning to not force myself to do something that I didn't want to do, or to force myself to do something that I felt obligated to do, because then that takes the fun out of it. So getting back to prioritization or prioritizing, what I do with my hobbies are that I try, when I'm really in the mood to do both, and I'm struggling to find the time to do both, is I will do both every day. And I will set a limit of, I will do so many rows of knitting, and then I will do so many rows, or then I will go to my stitching, or vice versa. I will start with stitching and I will go to knitting. Often, for me, it's much easier to knit later at night than it is to stitch. I make less mistakes when I'm stitching if I stitch earlier, because while I think knitting is a much, for me, as a new knitter, knitting is a much more complex activity that requires a they both require a different type of thinking, at least for me. This is all my perspective. So the type of thinking that I have to use for stitching, I'm much more proficient at when I'm awake and when I'm not tired and I'm up early, or I'm just much more lucid. It's much easier for me, or it is easier for me to knit when I'm tired, or just don't have, I'm not as lucid, or like when I first wake up in the morning. I have found that this week I've been getting up a little bit earlier every day, and I've been getting my coffee, and I've been putting in 4 or 5 rows of my scarf before I go to work, because it firstly is relaxing, and secondly I can enjoy my coffee without having to rush off to work, and so I get a second cup of coffee, and I'm getting some progress on my projects. So just finding and like that, just finding small bits and pieces of time throughout the day that you might be able to participate in the crafts. Again, for me, I take my knitting with me to friend's house or in the car. If I'm going on a long car ride, or even an hour car ride or 40-minute car ride, and I don't have to drive, I take my knitting with me. And I make sure I have something on my needles that is an easy enough knit that I don't have to have a complicated pattern. Usually it's a sock, because it's just round and round and round. And I can knit in the car while I'm sitting and talking, and I'm not just sitting there playing on my phone and running down the battery on my phone. And I'm much more engaged in the conversation. I can focus on the conversation. Or if there's no conversation, I still have something that I'm doing. I also think we have to really, going back to one of my earlier craft with me videos, and the thought of, maybe it wasn't so much, maybe it was my diamond painting video. I don't remember which one it was, but it was either the diamond painting video or the craft with me video, is that we have to stop comparing ourselves to each other about how much I get done versus how much you get done versus how much she gets done versus how much he gets done. We all have different lives and different expectations and requirements that keep us from doing the things that we love. And so when we compare and contrast what we're able to do versus what somebody else is able to do, we might get down on ourselves about, well, they get a lot more done than I do, or I don't feel like I'm getting enough accomplished. What is enough whenever it is a hobby? And if you're setting expectations like that, maybe we should really reconsider why expectations are being set, because hobbies are supposed to be relaxing. We have hobbies so that we can relieve ourselves from the stress of everything else in life. So that's how I look at multiple crafts, and making sure I prioritize. And along those lines, for me, I've had to reprioritize my life because I'm in school now. So I have other priorities and other requirements that keep me from doing the things that I love to do. And so I have to stay focused and get those things done, and then I can reward myself by doing my hobbies. Just like how around the house, when I need to do things, another thing that helps me is that I keep my house organized. I'm a horribly organized person. Everything has a spot and a place and a home. And the only thing that stays unorganized is the actual crafting stuff when I'm crafting, because my coffee table and my couch gets messy. But that's just because I'm working on so many different things at one time, usually. So by doing that, that's one less thing I have to do on a regular basis is clean or tidy up or, keep things neat and organized, because I'm already naturally doing that by having everything have its own home. And then whenever I do need to clean, like I did last weekend, like deep clean, it doesn't take me long. I also have a small house. So just finding different ways and tips and techniques that will help to find more time might be a great way to increase the feeling of not being able to have enough time to do the different things, to help you find time to do both things or multiple things. Another thing I'm prioritizing into my life right now is exercise. The winter is always hard for exercise, especially whenever I like to go outside and jog and be outside. And luckily, we've had some weather that has really provided opportunities to go outside. So I have been doing that, and that again takes away from my crafting. But again, I reward myself through getting that done, and then I can come home and sit down and craft. So I hope that helps and clarifies or just gives some perspective on how I do things. Again, I know everyone is different and everyone has unique perspectives and situations, and everyone acts differently. So, whereas I'm a super organized person, some people just don't thrive in that kind of environment, and I get that. As always, I would love to hear your perspectives in the comments below. And I know this also helps other people. So maybe by providing your insights, it might help somebody else who is listening and reading the comments as well. I know last week we talked about the different fabrics that would be a viable option for, oops, I'm stitching, I'm knitting, and I forgot to do my decrease. Bear with me one moment. Just gotta knit back. There we go. There. So last week we talked about viable options for a stiffer fabric for a person who wants to do Let Freedom Ring instead but only typically uses Aida because of the stiffness, and that's what they prefer. And many of you gave wonderful ideas and tips and tricks and suggestions as far as what kind of fabric or to use. I believe the rolling was a Monaco. Was Monaco stiffer? I'd have to go back and look, but all the comments are in the suggestions underneath that video, so go check that out if you're interested. There was also, I know, some ideas for adding some sizing to the fabric, because that's basically what makes fabric stiff. I believe it's called sizing. Of course, I didn't check the comments before I came on. I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head. So thank you all for the comments, and I know the individual who was seeking the advice also thanked everyone on the comments as well. So that was very helpful, and I appreciate all of your support, and I enjoy doing that. So if you have any questions for me, please feel free to leave them in comments below, or if you have more in-depth questions, feel free to message me on Instagram, or you can send a email to my email, ginger.gerald.stitcher@gmail.com, and I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear from you regardless, even if you don't have a question. So feel free to reach out to me and start up a conversation. I'm always willing to chat and talk and engage in conversation about the crafts that we love. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. $17, $18, $19. Bear with me as I count. Got to make sure I don't do too many decreases. Okay. So I am going to keep working on my sock gusset decreases and get that done. I think of everything on the sock, the gusset decreases are the thing I hate to do the most. So I'm going to get that done before I move on to stitching. And then I'm going to stitch for the day and do some laundry and things around the house that, like I just said, needs to get done. Don't forget to check out my Etsy store, GingerGeraldDesigns. A link will be below. Favorite those items that you like or make a purchase. I appreciate all of you who have made those purchases. Don't forget that the third installment of the Stories of the North patterns are available. All of my patterns are available as a PDF or a printed pattern that I can send to you. So make sure that you check those out. And I will see you on the next episode or next video. Have a great week, and don't forget to always be creative.